That Tuesday evening started like any other in our sprawling ranch-style home in the suburbs of Phoenix, Arizona. The desert sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of burnt orange and deep purple, casting long shadows across our manicured lawn. I was in the kitchen, preparing Liam's favorite dinner, mac and cheese with the fancy 3-cheese blend he insisted on, when I heard his small footsteps padding across the marble floor. My son, Liam, was 6 years old, a bright-eyed boy with a mop of sandy blonde hair that never quite stayed combed, no matter how much I tried. He had his father's green eyes and my stubborn chin. That evening, he was wearing his favorite dinosaur pajamas, the ones with the T-Rex print that were getting a little too small, but that he refused to outgrow. "Mommy," he said softly, tugging at the hem of my blouse. I looked down at him, immediately noticing something was different. His usual playful expression was replaced by something heavier, something that didn't belong on the face of a 6-year-old. His eyes were serious, almost frightened. "What is it, baby?" I asked, crouching down to his level. I smoothed his hair back from his forehead, searching his face. He glanced toward the hallway, checking to make sure we were alone. My husband, Marcus, was in his home office on a conference call, his deep voice a distant murmur through the walls. Liam leaned in close to my ear, his small hand cupping the side of his mouth as if sharing the world's biggest secret. "Mommy," he whispered, his breath warm against my cheek. "Daddy has a lover." The wooden spoon I was holding clattered to the floor. I felt my heart stop, literally stop for a beat, before it began racing so fast I thought it might burst through my chest. I pulled back to look at him, searching his innocent face for signs that this was some misunderstanding, some game he didn't understand. "Liam, sweetheart, where did you hear that word?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I heard Daddy talking on the phone," he said, his eyes wide and earnest. "He said it when he thought I was watching cartoons. He said, 'When Naomi travels to New York next week, we'll have time.' And then he said something about selling properties and going away together." The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the kitchen counter to steady myself. My mind was racing, trying to process what my 6-year-old son had just told me. Liam didn't lie. He was too young to understand the complexity of what he was saying, too innocent to fabricate something like this. "Are you sure that's what you heard, baby?" I asked gently. He nodded vigorously. "Yes, Mommy. I heard him say your name in New York and sell the properties." He sounded happy, like when we go to Disneyland. I pulled Liam into a tight hug, holding him against me, as if he were the only solid thing in a world that had just turned liquid and unstable. Over his small shoulder, I stared at the kitchen wall, at the family photos we had hung there just last Christmas, Marcus and me on our wedding day 10 years ago, the 3 of us at the Grand Canyon, Liam's first day of kindergarten. All of it felt like a lie now. "Thank you for telling me, sweetheart," I whispered into his hair. "You did the right thing. Can you go play in your room for a little bit while Mommy finishes dinner?" He nodded and scampered off, his dinosaur tail dragging behind him. I stood there in the kitchen, the smell of melting cheese filling the air, and felt something inside me crack wide open. Not with explosive rage, but with a cold, calculated clarity. I was Naomi Castellano, a successful real estate developer with a portfolio worth over $3 million. I had built my business from the ground up, starting with a single rental property I bought when I was 25, and growing it into a collection of residential and commercial properties across Arizona and Nevada. I was known in my industry for being sharp, for being strategic, for never making a move without thinking 3 steps ahead. And now, my husband thought he could outsmart me. I picked up the wooden spoon from the floor, rinsed it off, and continued stirring the mac and cheese as if nothing had happened. But inside, my mind was already working, cataloging every strange detail from the past few months that I had dismissed as paranoia or imagination. Marcus coming home late from client meetings. His phone, which used to sit openly on the coffee table, now always in his pocket or face down. The new cologne he'd started wearing, something expensive and musky that I hadn't bought him. The way his eyes slid past me when I tried to talk about our future, about maybe having another baby. And the biggest red flag of all, his sudden interest in my business trip to New York. I was scheduled to fly out next Wednesday for a real estate conference and meetings with potential investors. It was a 5-day trip, one I'd been planning for months. Marcus had been unusually supportive, even offering to take time off work to stay home with Liam, which was out of character for him. Now I knew why. I served dinner, setting Liam's plate in front of him with a smile that felt like plastic on my face. When Marcus finally emerged from his office, he kissed the top of my head absently and sat down at the head of the table. He looked relaxed, almost cheerful, his sandy hair slightly mussed from running his hands through it during his call. "How was your day?" he asked, reaching for the garlic bread. "Productive," I replied evenly. "Closed on the Scottsdale property. The new tenants move in next month." "That's great, babe," he said, but his eyes were already on his phone, scrolling through something that made him smile. I watched him, really watched him. The way his thumb moved across the screen, the slight upturn of his lips, the complete absence of guilt or awareness that our 6-year-old son had just handed me the keys to his betrayal. "How's your week looking?" I asked casually. "Still okay to hold down the fort while I'm in New York?" "Absolutely," he said quickly, looking up with a brightness in his eyes that I now recognized as anticipation. "Take all the time you need. Liam and I will have a guy's week. Right, buddy?" Liam looked at me, then at his father, and quietly nodded. My heart broke for him, for the confusion he must be feeling, for the weight of adult secrets he'd been forced to carry. That night, after tucking Liam into bed and reading him 3 stories instead of our usual one, I retreated to the guest bedroom. I told Marcus I had a headache, which wasn't entirely a lie. My head was pounding with the force of holding everything together. I locked the door, pulled out my laptop, and began to work. First, I checked our joint bank accounts. Nothing unusual yet, but I took screenshots of every balance, every transaction from the past 6 months. Then I logged into the property management system for our real estate holdings. All of our properties were held in a family trust that I had set up 5 years ago. Marcus was listed as a co-trustee, which meant he had legal authority to sign documents related to the properties. My blood ran cold as I realized what he could do. If he had a buyer lined up, if he had forged the right documents, he could potentially sell properties while I was out of town. It would be complicated, and he'd eventually get caught. But by then, the damage would be done. I spent the next 3 hours methodically going through every property deed, every title document, every piece of paperwork related to our real estate portfolio. I made copies of everything, storing them in a secure cloud account that Marcus didn't know about. Then I did something that felt like stepping off a cliff. I hired a private investigator. His name was David Chen, a former police detective who now ran a discreet investigation firm in Phoenix. I'd used him once before for a background check on a potential business partner. He was thorough, professional, and expensive. I didn't care about the cost. I sent him an email at 11 o'clock that night, outlining everything Liam had told me and requesting immediate surveillance on Marcus. I needed to know who this woman was, what their plans were, and most importantly, I needed evidence. David responded within an hour. "I'm on it. We'll have preliminary information within 48 hours. I closed my laptop and lay back on the guest bed, staring at the ceiling. The house was quiet, except for the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of a coyote howling in the desert. I thought about Marcus in our bedroom, probably scrolling through messages with her, planning his new life while I slept just down the hall. But I wasn't sleeping. I was planning too. The next morning, I woke early and made breakfast for my family as if nothing had changed. Pancakes with fresh blueberries, crispy bacon, and orange juice. Marcus came down in his running gear, kissed my cheek, and grabbed a protein shake instead. "I'm meeting Jake for a run," he said. Back in an hour. Jake was his college buddy, a personal trainer who lived across town. They ran together every Wednesday morning. Or at least, that's what I'd always been told. As soon as Marcus left, I checked the tracker app on my phone. Yes, I had installed a tracker on his phone 6 months ago, not out of suspicion then, but for safety reasons after Liam had gotten lost at the mall once. Marcus knew about it. He'd even joked about it. Now I watched the little blue dot move across the map, expecting it to head toward Jake's neighborhood. Instead, it went in the opposite direction, toward Tempe. I zoomed in on the location. It wasn't a park or a running trail. It was a residential address in a nice neighborhood with tree-lined streets and adobe-style homes. I took a screenshot and sent it to David Chen. This is where he is right now, supposedly meeting a friend for a run. David's response came back quickly. On it. I'll have someone there in 10 minutes. I spent the rest of that morning in a strange state of hyper-awareness. I dropped Liam off at school, exchanging pleasantries with the other mothers, smiling at his teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, when she told me what a bright student he was. All the while, my phone burned in my pocket, waiting for David's update. It came at 10:30, while I was sitting in my office at the property management company I co-owned with my business partner, Simone. David had sent a photo. My hands trembled as I opened it. The image showed Marcus, in his running gear, standing on the porch of that Tempe address. He wasn't alone. Next to him was a woman, tall and slender with long dark hair pulled into a high ponytail. She wore yoga pants and a sports bra, and she was laughing at something Marcus had said. His hand rested on the small of her back, intimate and familiar. The next photo showed them going inside together. The third photo, time-stamped 45 minutes later, showed them on the same porch. Marcus's hair damp with sweat that probably had nothing to do with running. The woman was kissing his cheek. I stared at the photos until they blurred. Then I read David's message. Her name is Sienna Carver. Age 32. Works as a real estate agent for Prestige Properties. Divorced, no kids. She and Marcus have been seeing each other for approximately 7 months, based on social media cross-referencing and witness statements I'm currently collecting. I'll have a full report by this evening. 7 months. 7 months of lies. 7 months of him coming home and kissing me, sleeping in our bed, playing with our son, all while building a life with someone else. I set my phone down carefully on my desk, as if it might explode. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I cried. Not the pretty, delicate tears you see in movies, but the ugly, gasping kind that comes from somewhere deep and primal. Simone, my business partner and closest friend, found me like that. Mascara streaming down my face, bent over my desk. Naomi! She rushed in and closed the door behind her. What happened? Is it Liam? I shook my head, unable to speak. She sat beside me, rubbing my back until the storm passed. When I could finally breathe again, I told her everything. Liam's whispered secret, the tracker, the photos, the 7 months of betrayal. Simone listened without interrupting, her dark eyes growing harder with each detail. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. What are you going to do? She finally asked. I'm going to beat him at his own game, I said, and my voice was steady again, cold and sharp as steel. But I need your help. Anything, Simone said without hesitation. I pulled up the property trust documents on my computer. I need to transfer primary control of all the properties to a new trust, one that Marcus can't access. I need to do it before I'm supposed to leave for New York, but I can't let him know what I'm doing. Simone nodded slowly, her mind already working. She was a lawyer before becoming my business partner, and her legal expertise had saved us more than once. That's doable, but it'll require new paperwork, new signatures, and we'll need to file with the county recorder's office. It's going to take at least 3 days. Then we start now, I said. For the rest of that day and all of the next, Simone and I worked in secret. We drafted new trust documents that removed Marcus as co-trustee and established me as the sole decision-maker. We created a new legal entity, a limited liability company that would hold all of my real estate assets, protected from any claims Marcus might make. We worked late into the nights, fueled by coffee and righteous anger. I kept up the facade at home, cooking dinners, helping Liam with his kindergarten homework, asking Marcus about his day. He suspected nothing. Why would he? I was still the same Naomi, the devoted wife, the careful planner, the woman who had always trusted him. But inside, I was transforming. Every lie he told, every time he smiled at me while texting her, every casual mention of my upcoming trip to New York, I felt myself hardening. The woman who had cried in her office was gone. In her place was someone focused, strategic, and absolutely ruthless. David Chen sent me updates every few hours. Sienna Carver wasn't just Marcus's mistress. She was his co-conspirator. David had uncovered emails between them discussing the sale of 3 of my properties, including the Scottsdale commercial building I'd just leased. They had already contacted buyers. They had already drafted sales agreements, forging my signature on preliminary documents. Marcus had planned this for months, waiting for the perfect opportunity. My New York trip was it. While I was gone, he would finalize the sales, transfer the money to an offshore account he'd opened in the Cayman Islands, and disappear with Sienna. They'd probably leave the country, maybe Central America or Southeast Asia, somewhere without an extradition treaty. And Liam, my beautiful, innocent boy, Marcus's own son? The emails made it clear. Liam was an inconvenience, a complication they'd deal with later. Maybe send him to boarding school. Maybe leave him with me once they'd drained all the assets. When I read that, I stopped feeling anything at all. The anger, the hurt, the betrayal. All of it crystallized into something pure and focused. They had made a terrible mistake. They had underestimated me. On Friday evening, 3 days after Liam's whispered secret, and 2 days before I was supposed to fly to New York, I made my move. I told Marcus I needed to go into the office for a few hours to finalize some paperwork before my trip. He barely looked up from the basketball game he was watching, just waved absently, and told me to drive safe. I drove to Simone's law office where we had everything ready. The new trust documents, the LLC paperwork, the transfer deeds. We had even arranged for an emergency hearing with a judge who owed Simone a favor. By 8 o'clock that evening, every single property I owned was legally protected, locked in a trust that Marcus could never touch. I also did something else. I filed for divorce. The petition was comprehensive, detailing every asset, every account, every piece of evidence David had collected. I requested full custody of Liam, citing Marcus's plan to abandon him. I included the forged documents, the emails, the photos of him with Sienna, and a particularly damning recording David had obtained of Marcus on the phone with a buyer, pretending to be me, using a voice modulator. It was fraud. It was forgery. It was enough to send him to prison if I wanted to push criminal charges. But I didn't want him in prison. I wanted him to have nothing. Simone looked at me as I signed the final page of the divorce petition. "Are you sure about this? Once we file, there's no going back." "I've never been more sure of anything," I said. We filed the papers electronically at 9 p.m. By law, Marcus would be served within 24 hours. I drove home slowly, taking the long way, watching the lights of Phoenix sparkle in the desert darkness. When I pulled into our driveway, I sat in the car for a moment, gathering myself. I had one more thing to do. Marcus was in bed when I got home, reading on his tablet. He looked up and smiled. "Get everything done?" "Everything," I said. I went to Liam's room first. He was asleep, his small body curled around his favorite stuffed triceratops. I sat on the edge of his bed and gently brushed the hair from his forehead. He stirred, opening his eyes. "Mommy?" "Shh, baby. Everything's okay. I want you to know something, though. You are the bravest boy I know. What you told me the other day? You probably saved us. You saved our family. Our real family. It's just going to be you and me for a while, okay? But we're going to be more than okay. We're going to be happy. He looked at me with those serious green eyes. Is Daddy going away? Yes, baby, but it's not your fault. None of this is your fault. Adults make their own choices, and Daddy made some really bad ones. But you and I? We're going to be just fine. He nodded, processing this in the way children do, accepting what adults often can't. Okay, Mommy. I love you. I love you too, sweetheart, more than all the stars in the sky. I kissed his forehead and tucked him back in. Then I went to our bedroom, where Marcus was now asleep, his tablet fallen onto his chest. I stood in the doorway and looked at him, really looked at him, trying to find the man I'd fallen in love with 12 years ago. He wasn't there. Maybe he'd never been there. Maybe I'd only ever loved a version of him that I'd created in my mind, a projection of what I'd wanted him to be. I didn't wake him. I didn't confront him. There would be time for that tomorrow when the process server showed up at his office. Instead, I gathered my pillow and returned to the guest room. I locked the door, climbed into bed, and for the first time in 3 days, I slept deeply and dreamlessly. The next morning was Saturday. I woke early, made coffee, and sat on our back patio watching the sun rise over the desert. The sky was clear, brilliant blue, and the air had that crisp quality it only gets in Arizona mornings before the heat settles in. Marcus came outside around 8, coffee mug in hand, and sat in the chair next to mine. For a few minutes, we sat in comfortable silence, the kind we'd shared 1,000 times before. Then his phone buzzed. He picked it up, glanced at the screen, and froze. I watched his face change, watched the color drain from his tanned skin as he read the notification. The process server had just emailed him a copy of the divorce petition. "Naomi," he said, his voice strangled. "What is this?" I took a slow sip of my coffee. "I think it's pretty self-explanatory, Marcus." He stared at his phone, scrolling frantically. "You filed for divorce? You transferred all the properties? How did you really think I wouldn't find out?" I asked calmly. "Did you think I was that stupid?" His mouth opened and closed. He looked like a fish drowning in air. "Liam told me," I continued. 3 days ago. He heard you on the phone with her, planning to sell everything while I was in New York. My 6-year-old son had to carry that secret, Marcus. Our baby had to be the one to tell me that his father was betraying his mother." Marcus's face went from white to red. "Naomi, I can explain." "No." I cut him off, my voice sharp as a blade. "You can't. There's no explanation that makes this okay. You weren't just having an affair. You were planning to steal from me. You forged documents. You opened offshore accounts. You committed fraud, Marcus. Multiple felonies." I set my coffee cup down and turned to face him fully. "I have evidence of everything. Every email, every text message, every forged signature. I have surveillance photos of you with Sienna. I have recordings of you impersonating me to buyers. I have it all." He stood up abruptly, knocking his chair backward. "You had someone following me? You invaded my privacy?" I laughed, a harsh sound. "Your privacy? You lost any right to privacy when you decided to destroy our family. And for the record, I didn't invade anything. You left a trail a mile wide because you thought I was too trusting, too busy, too focused on my business to notice what you were doing right under my nose. Naomi, please." He reached for me, but I stepped back. "Don't touch me," I said coldly. "You need to leave, today. Pack your things and get out of my house." "Your house? This is our house." "No," I corrected him. "This house is titled in the family trust that I established, a trust you are no longer a part of. Legally, as of yesterday afternoon, You have no claim to this property or any other property I own. You have no claim to my business, my accounts, or anything except whatever you brought into this marriage, which, if I recall correctly, was about $15,000 and a lot of student loan debt that I paid off. His face was a mask of shock and rage. You can't do this. I already did. He tried a different tactic, his voice turning pleading. What about Liam? You're going to keep me from my son? I'm requesting full custody, I said. Given that you were planning to abandon him and flee the country, I don't think the judge will have any problem granting it. You'll get supervised visitation if you're lucky. I wasn't going to abandon him. Really? I pulled out my phone and opened one of the emails David had uncovered. I read it aloud. The kid complicates things. Maybe boarding school in Switzerland? Naomi can have him. She always wanted to be a mother more than I wanted to be a father anyway. Those are your words, Marcus, in an email to Sienna dated 3 weeks ago. He crumbled then, literally sank to his knees on the patio, his head in his hands. Naomi, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I don't know what I was thinking. Please, we can fix this. I looked down at him, this man I'd once loved, and felt absolutely nothing. The only mistake you made was getting caught. And we can't fix this, Marcus, because you broke something that can't be repaired. You betrayed not just me, but our son. You were willing to destroy the life we built, to steal what I worked for, and to abandon your own child. There's no coming back from that. I turned to go back inside, then paused. You have until noon to pack your things and leave. If you're not gone by then, I'll call the police and have you removed. And Marcus, if you go anywhere near Sienna Carver, if you try to warn her or coordinate anything with her, I will file criminal charges. I will press every charge I possibly can, and I will make sure you spend the next 10 years in prison. Do you understand? He nodded, still on his knees, broken. I went inside, locked the door behind me, and went to check on Liam. He was in the living room, building a tower with his blocks, his little face scrunched in concentration. He looked up when I came in. Is Daddy leaving? He asked. Yes, baby, I said, sitting down next to him. Is that okay? He thought about it for a moment, then nodded. I think so. He was making you sad. I pulled him into my arms and held him tight. You are the smartest, bravest boy in the whole world. You know that? He giggled. Can we have pizza for lunch? We can have anything you want, I said. By noon, Marcus was gone. He'd packed 2 suitcases and left without another word, without even saying goodbye to Liam. I watched him load his car from the living room window, Liam playing obliviously at my feet. As Marcus's car pulled out of the driveway for the last time, I felt something unexpected. Not victory, not satisfaction, but a profound sense of lightness, as if a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying had been lifted. I picked up my phone and called my travel agent. Hi, Jessica. I need to cancel my New York trip next week. Something's come up. Oh no, is everything all right? Everything's perfect, I said, and I meant it. I just realized I need to be home with my son right now. We have some healing to do. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal proceedings, paperwork, and adjustments. David Chen completed his investigation, uncovering even more evidence of Marcus's fraud. It turned out that Marcus and Sienna had been more ambitious than I'd thought. They'd planned to sell not just my properties, but also to steal from Marcus's employer, a financial planning firm where he worked as a senior consultant. When I shared that evidence with Marcus's boss, he was fired immediately. The firm also filed their own legal action against him. Sienna Carver lost her real estate license when the state board reviewed the forged documents. She tried to blame everything on Marcus, claiming she was manipulated, but the emails told a different story. She'd been an active, willing participant in the fraud. Neither of them faced criminal charges in the end. I decided that the civil penalties, the public shame, and the destruction of their careers was punishment enough. I didn't want to spend years tied up in criminal proceedings. I wanted to move forward. The divorce was finalized in record time. Marcus, faced with overwhelming evidence and the threat of criminal prosecution, agreed to every single one of my terms. He gave up all claims to marital assets, agreed to supervised visitation with Liam, and signed papers acknowledging his fraud. I got everything: the house, the properties, my business, and most importantly, full custody of Liam. 3 months after that Saturday morning confrontation, I was sitting in my newly redecorated home office when Simone called. "Have you seen the news?" she asked. "What news?" "Marcus and Sienna. Apparently they tried to start a consulting business together in Nevada. It failed spectacularly. They're both bankrupt, and from what I hear, they're not even together anymore." She blamed him for ruining her career. He blamed her for the whole scheme falling apart. It's a beautiful mess. I felt nothing hearing that. No satisfaction, no schadenfreude. They'd made their choices and were living with the consequences. That was justice enough. "Good for them," I said simply. "How's the Henderson property looking?" We spent the next hour talking business, planning our next real estate acquisition. My company was thriving, without the distraction of a failing marriage. Without the stress of living with someone who was actively plotting against me, I was more focused and more successful than ever. That evening, I picked up Liam from his new school, a private academy with an excellent kindergarten program. His teacher, Mr. Williams, stopped me as we were leaving. "Mrs. Castellano, I wanted to tell you that Liam has been doing wonderfully. He's one of the brightest students in class, and his reading level is exceptional for his age." I beamed with pride. "Thank you. He loves school." "He talks about you all the time," Mr. Williams continued. "He told the class yesterday that his mom is a superhero who saves buildings." I laughed. "That's one way to describe real estate development." Driving home, Liam chattering about his day from the back seat, I thought about the past 3 months. It hadn't been easy. There had been hard conversations with Liam about why Daddy didn't live with us anymore. There had been tears, his and mine. There had been moments of doubt, moments when I wondered if I'd been too harsh, too unforgiving. But every time I doubted myself, I remembered that whispered secret in the kitchen. I remembered my 6-year-old son carrying the weight of adult betrayal. I remembered the emails describing him as an inconvenience. And I knew I'd made the right choice. That night, after tucking Liam into bed, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the back patio, the same spot where I'd confronted Marcus 3 months earlier. The desert sky was clear, filled with stars, and the air was cool and perfect. My phone buzzed with a text from David Chen. "Hope you're doing well. Wanted to let you know I closed the file on your case today. All evidence has been archived per your instructions. If you ever need anything, I'm here."
I smiled and typed back, "Thank you for everything, David. You helped me save my life and my son's future." His response came quickly. "You saved yourself, Mrs. Castellano. I just provided the tools." He was right. I had saved myself. Not by being vindictive or cruel, but by being smart, strategic, and unwilling to let anyone steal what I'd built. A year later, I was standing in front of my newest property, a mixed-use development in downtown Phoenix. Simone was beside me, along with Liam, who wore a tiny hard hat and held a golden shovel for the groundbreaking ceremony. "Ready, big guy?" I asked him. He nodded enthusiastically, gripping his shovel with both hands. "On 3, I said. 1, 2, 3... We dug our shovels into the earth together as cameras flashed around us. The reporters were there to cover the development, the largest project my company had ever undertaken. But I was there for something else entirely. This building would be called the Liam Center. It would house affordable apartments on the upper floors and a community center on the ground level, offering after-school programs for children from low-income families. It was my way of giving back, of creating something meaningful from the ashes of my old life. After the ceremony, as we walked back to the car, Liam tugged on my hand. "Mommy, The building has my name on it. It sure does, I said. Because you're the one who started all of this. You told me the truth when it was hard and scary to tell the truth. You saved us, Liam. This building is my way of saying thank you. He considered this seriously. That's a pretty big thank you. I laughed and scooped him up even though he was getting too big for it. That's because you're a pretty amazing kid. As I loaded him into his car seat, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Is this Naomi Castellano? A woman's voice asked. Yes, who's calling? My name is Valerie Ross. I'm calling from the Arizona Association of Women in Business. We'd like to honor you at our annual gala next month. We're giving you the Entrepreneur of the Year award. I stood there in the parking lot, phone pressed to my ear, and felt tears prick my eyes. Wow, I'm honored. Thank you. You've built an incredible business, Valerie continued, and your commitment to community development and affordable housing is exactly the kind of leadership we want to celebrate. Will you accept? Absolutely, I said. After hanging up, I sat in the driver's seat for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, taking it all in. A year ago, I'd been standing in my kitchen, learning that my husband was betraying me in the worst possible way. I'd felt the ground disappear beneath my feet. Now I'd built a new foundation, stronger, more solid, all mine. Mommy, can we get ice cream? Liam asked from the back seat. We can get anything you want, baby, I said, starting the car.
As I drove through Phoenix, the city I loved, the city where I'd built my empire and rebuilt my life, I thought about Marcus. I wondered if he ever regretted his choices, if he ever thought about what he'd lost. I hoped he did. Not out of spite, but because I wanted him to understand the value of what he'd thrown away. A real family, a good woman, a beautiful son. But mostly, I didn't think about him at all anymore. He was a chapter in my story, not the whole book. And the chapters I was writing now? They were so much better. 6 months after that, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Marcus, forwarded through my lawyer per the court order that he couldn't contact me directly. I almost threw it away unopened. But curiosity got the better of me. Naomi, I know I have no right to write to you, no right to ask for anything, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. Not sorry I got caught, but genuinely sorry for what I did, for what I almost did. Seeing Liam at his school play last month, thank you for allowing me supervised visitation, made me realize what I almost destroyed. He's an amazing kid, and that's because of you. You've protected him, loved him, and given him stability even when I tried to take everything from you. I've been in therapy for the past 6 months. I'm not writing this to ask for forgiveness or to get back into your life. I know that door is closed, and it should be. I'm writing because you deserve to know that I understand now what I was too selfish and cowardly to see before. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I destroyed it. Not because you weren't enough, but because I wasn't. I was weak, greedy, and stupid. I let someone manipulate me into thinking I deserved more than what I had, when the truth is I never deserved you in the first place. I hope you're happy. I hope Liam is thriving. And I hope that one day, when he's old enough to understand, you'll tell him that his father learned too late what really matters. I'm moving to Colorado for a fresh start. I won't contest the custody arrangement. You're the parent he needs and deserves. Take care of yourself and our son. Marcus. I read the letter twice, then carefully folded it and put it in a file in my office safe. Not because I wanted to keep it close, but because someday Liam might want to see it. Might want to know that his father, however belatedly, acknowledged his mistakes. For myself, the letter changed nothing. Marcus had made his choices, and I'd made mine. I'd chosen survival. I'd chosen dignity. I'd chosen my son. And I'd chosen myself. That evening, I sat on the patio with a glass of wine and my laptop, reviewing the plans for my next development project. Liam was inside, video chatting with his grandmother, my mother, who had moved to Phoenix 6 months ago to be closer to us. Her laughter floated through the open door, mixing with Liam's giggles. My phone buzzed with a text from Simone. "Dinner tomorrow? There's someone I want you to meet." I smiled. Simone had been trying to set me up for months. I'd resisted, not because I was still hung up on Marcus, but because I was perfectly content alone. I'd learned that I didn't need a partner to be complete. I was whole all by myself. But maybe, I thought, maybe I was ready to let someone in. Not to complete me, but to complement the life I'd built. "Sure," I texted back, "but low pressure, okay? Just dinner." "Promise," she replied. "You're going to like him. He's an architect. Divorced, 1 daughter. Good guy, no drama, an architect." I thought about my development projects, about how an architect's vision could mesh with a developer's pragmatism. Maybe it could work, maybe not. Either way, I was open to the possibility. Later that night, after Liam was asleep, I stood in his doorway watching him breathe, his small chest rising and falling in the peaceful rhythm of childhood sleep. His dinosaur pajamas had finally gotten too small, replaced by superhero ones he'd picked out himself. He was growing so fast. "Thank you," I whispered to his sleeping form. "Thank you for being brave enough to tell me the truth." I thought about the butterfly effect of that one whispered secret in the kitchen, how it had led to the unraveling of my marriage, the rebuilding of my life, the strengthening of my business, and the deepening of my bond with my son. If Liam hadn't told me, I would have gone to New York. Marcus would have sold my properties. I would have returned to find my life in ruins, my assets gone, my husband vanished. I would have had to fight for years to recover anything, and by then, the damage would have been irreparable. Instead, I'd been given a gift. The gift of knowledge, the gift of time, the gift of being able to take control before everything was lost. I walked to my own bedroom, the master suite I'd completely redecorated after Marcus left. Gone were the heavy, masculine furnishings he'd insisted on. Now it was light and airy, all whites and soft blues, with gauzy curtains that let in the desert sunlight each morning. I got ready for bed, following the nighttime routine I'd established. Skincare, pajamas, a chapter of a book. Simple rituals that grounded me, reminded me that I was building a life of intention, not just reacting to chaos. As I turned off the light, I thought about where I'd been a year ago, and where I was now. The journey hadn't been easy. There had been moments of crushing loneliness, moments when I'd second-guessed every decision. There had been nights when I'd cried into my pillow, grieving not for Marcus, but for the dream of what I'd thought my marriage was. But I'd survived. More than survived. I'd thrived. My business was stronger than ever. My relationship with Liam was deeper and more honest. My friendships, especially with Simone, had become unshakable foundations. And most importantly, I'd rediscovered myself. Not the woman who defined herself through her marriage, but the woman who had built an empire from nothing. The woman who was smart enough, strong enough, and brave enough to protect what was hers. I'd learned that love without respect is worthless. That trust, once broken, can never be fully repaired. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from someone who doesn't value you. And I'd learned that I was enough. Just me. Just Naomi. Mother, businesswoman, survivor. The next morning was Sunday. I woke early, made coffee, and watched the sunrise from my patio. It was my favorite time of day, when the world was quiet and full of possibility. Liam padded out in his superhero pajamas, rubbing his eyes. "Morning, Mommy." "Good morning, my love. Want to help me make pancakes? Can we make the dinosaur ones?" "We can make anything you want." We spent the morning in the kitchen, making a mess with flour and eggs, laughing at our attempts to create recognizable dinosaur shapes in pancake form. My kitchen, once the site of my worst moment, had become a place of joy again. After breakfast, we drove to the Phoenix Zoo. It was something we did almost every Sunday now, just the two of us. Liam loved the reptile house, and I loved watching his face light up with wonder as he pressed his nose against the glass to see the snakes and lizards. "Mommy," he said as we walked hand in hand past the elephant habitat, "are you happy?" The question caught me off guard. I stopped walking and crouched down to his level. "Very happy. Why do you ask?" He shrugged, a gesture he'd recently picked up that made him seem much older than 6. "You smile a lot now, more than before." "Do I?" He nodded seriously. "Before, when Daddy was still here, you smiled with just your mouth. Now you smile with your eyes, too." I felt tears prick my eyes, but they were good tears. "You are incredibly observant, you know that?" "Ms. Rodriguez says I have acute awareness," he said proudly, if not entirely correctly. I laughed and pulled him into a hug. "Ms. Rodriguez is absolutely right, and yes, baby, I'm happy. Happier than I've been in a long time. Are you happy?" He thought about it carefully, the way he thought about everything. "Yeah, I miss Daddy sometimes, but I like that you're not sad anymore. And I like our new routine. And I really like that Grandma lives close now." "Me too," I said. "All of those things." We continued through the zoo, stopping at the gift shop on the way out where I let Liam pick out a stuffed Komodo dragon. As we walked to the car, his small hand in mine, his new stuffed animal tucked under his other arm, I felt a profound sense of peace. This was my life now. Not the life I'd planned, not the life I'd thought I wanted, but a good life. A real life. An honest life. That evening, after putting Liam to bed, I sat in my home office and opened my journal. I'd started keeping one 6 months ago, on my therapist's recommendation. At first, it had felt silly, but now it was one of my favorite rituals. I wrote about the day, about Liam's observation at the zoo, about the upcoming dinner with Simone's architect friend. Then I wrote something I'd been thinking about all day. A year ago, my 6-year-old son whispered a secret that changed everything. He told me the truth that my husband was hiding, and in doing so, he gave me the greatest gift possible, the chance to save myself. I used to think that being a good wife meant trusting blindly, supporting unconditionally, and forgiving infinitely. I thought that love meant putting someone else's needs before my own, even when they were actively hurting me. I was wrong. Real love respects boundaries. Real partnership requires honesty. And self-love, the kind that actually matters, means having the courage to walk away when someone shows you they don't value what you bring to the table. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not hurt. I'm grateful. Grateful that I found out when I did. Grateful that I had the resources and the support system to protect myself and my son. Grateful that I was strong enough to choose myself. Marcus thought he was so clever, planning his betrayal, counting on my trust and my busy schedule to cover his tracks. But he forgot one crucial thing. I didn't build a multi-million-dollar business by being naive. I built it by being strategic, thorough, and always 3 steps ahead. He played checkers, I played chess, and I won. Not because I wanted to destroy him, but because I refused to let him destroy me. Tomorrow, I'm having dinner with someone new. I don't know if it'll lead anywhere, and honestly, I'm okay if it doesn't. Because I've learned that I don't need someone to complete me. I'm already complete. But maybe, just maybe, I'm ready to share this complete life I've built with someone who deserves to be part of it. Someone who will treat me as an equal partner, not as a resource to be exploited. If that person is out there, great. If not, I'll still be here, building my empire, raising my incredible son, and living my best life. Because I am Naomi Castellano, and I am enough. I closed the journal and looked around my office. On the wall were framed photos. Liam at his kindergarten graduation, me and Simone at the groundbreaking for the Liam Center, my team accepting an award for excellence in sustainable development, and one new addition, a professional photo of just me, taken for a magazine profile, looking confident and strong in a power suit, with the Phoenix skyline behind me. That woman in the photo was who I'd always been underneath. The betrayal hadn't created her, it had just removed all the layers that were hiding her. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Liam video called me tonight and told me all about the zoo. He's such a wonderful boy. You're doing an amazing job, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you. I smiled and typed back, "Thank you, Mom. Love you." As I got ready for bed that night, I thought about the women out there who might be in the position I'd been in a year ago. The women who suspect something is wrong but tell themselves they're being paranoid. The women who ignore red flags because confronting them feels too scary. The women who think they need to stay for the kids, for the finances, for the sake of appearances. I wished I could tell every one of them, "You are stronger than you know. Trust your instincts, protect yourself, and most importantly, don't wait for someone else to save you. Save yourself." Because that's what I'd done. My 6-year-old son had given me the information, but I was the one who acted on it. I was the one who hired the investigator, secured my assets, filed for divorce, and refused to be manipulated or gaslit into staying. I was my own hero. And there was incredible power in that realization. 2 days later, I met Simone and her architect friend Daniel at a quiet Italian restaurant in downtown Scottsdale. He was tall, with graying temples and kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled. We talked about our work, discovered we had similar philosophies about sustainable development, and laughed over shared stories of difficult clients and impossible deadlines. At the end of the evening, as we said goodbye, he asked if he could call me sometime. "I'd like that," I said, and meant it. Driving home that night, I didn't feel the butterflies of new romance or the anxiety of opening myself up to potential hurt. I felt calm, grounded, and open to possibility without being attached to any particular outcome. I'd learned the most important lesson of all. My happiness didn't depend on anyone else. Not Marcus, not Daniel, not anyone except myself and the choices I made every day. When I got home, I paid the babysitter and went to check on Liam. He was fast asleep, his new Komodo dragon clutched in his arms. I sat on the edge of his bed, just watching him breathe, marveling at this tiny human who had inadvertently saved us both. "Thank you," I whispered again. "Thank you for being brave enough to tell the truth, even when it was scary." Then I went to my own room, climbed into my comfortable bed, and fell asleep quickly and peacefully. The next morning would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new moments to navigate. But I was ready for all of it, because I was no longer the woman who waited for life to happen to her. I was the woman who made things happen. And that made all the difference. Did you like this story? I'm Auntie Ruthy, and I believe every woman has the strength to save herself when she's ready to see the truth. Which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If this story resonated with you, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories of courage, survival, and triumph. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on Naomi's journey. On the screen, you can see 2 more life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe to Voices of Auntie Ruthy. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.